London is a city of ghosts. Not of the spectral variety, but of men who move through its arteries unseen, conducting business in whispered conversations and encrypted messages. They are the architects of a silent, parallel economy, one that operates in the shadows of legitimate commerce. In February 2021, this phantom world was on the verge of its greatest triumph. The successful importation of a shipment so vast it would have flooded the streets of Britain with cocaine and cemented the power of a new invisible empire. The plan was flawless, the logistics impeccable, the cover perfect. They had accounted for everything except the one variable no criminal can ever truly control, a single, stray thread of information that, once pulled, would unravel it all. The Crispin Industrial Estate in Tottenham is a place of brutalist functionality, a monotonous grid of concrete steel shutters and gray skies where the air hums with the drone of machinery and the rumble of lorries. It's a place designed for anonymity, where businesses exist as little more than names on a directory. Among them was Unit 4, home to Agro Food Ltd. To any casual observer, it was just another link in the city's vast food supply chain, a modest enterprise dealing in the perishable but profitable trade of imported fruit. The company's public face was Petko Zhutev, a 39-year-old Bulgarian national who had assumed directorship in December 2020. Zhutev played his part to perfection. He was quiet, diligent, and maintained a low profile, the very model of an unremarkable small business owner. He was a man who seemed more concerned with customs declarations and delivery schedules than with building a criminal dynasty. But his name on the paperwork was merely a firewall, a disposable asset designed to absorb the impact if the worst should happen. The true heart of Agro Food Ltd beat in the shadows. The company was a front, meticulously constructed by a highly disciplined Albanian-led organized crime group, OCG. This was not a gang of street thugs. They were businessmen whose commodity was narcotics. They operated with the detached efficiency of a Fortune 500 company, prizing silence, security, and absolute control above all else. At the top of this pyramid sat Eric Mucci, 44, a man whose name appeared on no company documents. Mucci was the ghost in the machine, the chief strategist. He was a figure of immense caution, avoiding direct contact with the product, communicating through heavily encrypted devices, and orchestrating the entire enterprise from a safe distance. He was the chess master, moving his pieces across the board with foresight and precision. His deputies were a hand-picked cadre, each with a specialized function. Bruno Cucci, 33, was the hands-on logistics chief. It was his responsibility to manage the physical reception of the goods, overseeing the warehouse and the critical process of extraction. Georgi Diko, 33, was the transport manager, tasked with moving the repackaged cocaine from the warehouse into the wider UK distribution network. And Olsi Ibija, 40, was the security specialist, the silent lookout responsible for scouting delivery routes, ensuring they were clear of surveillance, and acting as the crew's eyes and ears on the ground. Their operational security was paramount. They eschewed flashy cars and extravagant lifestyles, understanding that wealth attracts attention, and attention is the enemy of enterprise. Their power was not projected through violence, but through their invisibility. They had hijacked the legitimate systems of global trade, turning a humble fruit import business into the endpoint of a multi-million-pound narco pipeline. And in the bleak winter of early 2021, they awaited their masterpiece. The journey began 5,000 miles away in the humid, chaotic port of Turbo, Colombia. Nestled on the Gulf of Urabá, Turbo is a critical gateway for legitimate trade, but it also serves as a major exit point for the country's most infamous export. Here, in coordination with local cartels, the syndicate's plan was set in motion. The product was 2,330 1-kilogram blocks of high-purity cocaine, each pressed and wrapped with professional care. Many of the blocks were stamped with logos, including a KO brand, marking it for the specific Albanian OCG that had placed the order. The method of concealment was ingenious in its simplicity. The cocaine blocks were not randomly stuffed into boxes but strategically integrated into the structure of 41 pallets of bananas. Some were placed in the hollowed-out sections of the wooden pallets themselves, while others were packed deep within the cardboard boxes, surrounded by real fruit to mask their form and scent. The choice of bananas was a masterstroke. As a perishable good, banana shipments are often expedited through customs to prevent spoilage. The sheer volume makes a comprehensive, box-by-box search virtually impossible without causing costly delays that port authorities are keen to avoid. Once loaded, a cargo vessel charted a course across the vast expanse of the Atlantic. The route was deliberately convoluted, designed to launder the cargo's origin. The ship made stops at major European transit hubs, likely Algeciras in Spain or Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where its containers would be offloaded and reloaded onto other vessels. By the time the ship carrying the 41 pallets made its final approach to the British Isles, its journey appeared as a routine intra-European transfer. On Saturday, 13th of February 2021, the vessel docked at Portsmouth International Port. The paperwork, filed by Agro Food Ltd, was flawless. On the surface, it was just another legitimate shipment for a registered UK business. But hidden within the ripening fruit was a cargo with a wholesale value of over £60 million and a potential street value estimated by the NCA to be around £184 million. It was enough cocaine to fuel addiction, violence, and misery across the UK for months. The syndicate had navigated the complexities of international shipping, customs, and logistics. Their payload was on British soil. The final, most crucial stage of the operation was about to begin. They believed they were home free. While the syndicate prepared to collect their prize, another group of professionals was moving with equal precision. The Organized Crime Partnership, OCP, a joint unit of the National Crime Agency, NCA, and the Metropolitan Police, had been alerted. A critical piece of intelligence, originating from European law enforcement partners, had landed on their desks. It was specific: a massive cocaine shipment, destination Agro Food Ltd, hidden in bananas. The alert triggered a flurry of activity. On Sunday, February 14th, as the containers sat in the secure area of the port, a team from the UK Border Force was deployed. They didn't need to rip open the pallets just yet. Sophisticated mobile scanning equipment was brought in, its X-rays capable of piercing through the layers of fruit and cardboard. The images that appeared on the operator's screens were unmistakable. Amidst the organic shapes of the bananas were dense, perfectly uniform rectangles. The intelligence was correct. The seizure was a major victory, but the OCP saw a golden opportunity. Arresting the lorry driver at the port gates would be a hollow win. It would cut off the head of a single delivery but leave the brain of the entire organization intact and free to try again. A far bolder plan was conceived, one that required immense resources, precision, and nerve. They would not just seize the drugs, they would use the drugs as bait. They would build a Trojan Horse. In a secure, undisclosed location, an extraordinary operation began. Over the next 48 hours, officers worked tirelessly, methodically removing every single one of the 2,030 cocaine blocks from the 41 pallets. Each block was catalogued, weighed, and secured as evidence. In their place, identical dummy blocks were substituted, replicating the exact weight and dimensions of the real narcotics. This was forensic work of the highest order. The pallets had to be reconstructed so perfectly that the criminals would notice nothing amiss. But the substitution was only part of the trap. Into the fabric of the pallets, technicians embedded a suite of state-of-the-art surveillance devices. Miniature GPS trackers would map the consignment's every move. Covert audio bugs, sensitive enough to pick up whispers from across a room, would provide a live feed of the criminals' conversations. And, crucially, tiny, pressure-sensitive sensors were placed inside the specific pallets they knew the criminals would open first. The moment a box was lifted, A silent alarm would be transmitted to the OCP command center. To complete the ruse, 2 highly trained undercover officers were assigned to pose as the lorry drivers. Their job was to make the final delivery, to act naturally, and to drive the bait directly into the heart of the enemy's lair. The Trojan Horse was ready to be wheeled to the gates. On the morning of Thursday, 18th February 2021, 2 lorries rumbled out of Portsmouth, their cargo holds filled with the rigged banana pallets. They journeyed north towards London, the undercover officers behind the wheel navigating the motorways, every move monitored by the OCP. Their destination, the Crispin Industrial Estate. As the lorries backed into the loading bay of Unit 4, the final act began. The undercover officers completed their delivery, obtained the requisite paperwork, and departed, leaving the trap behind. The heavy roller shutters of the warehouse clanged shut, sealing the criminals inside with their supposed fortune. Through the hidden audio bugs, the OCP listened. The atmosphere inside was calm, professional. The men spoke in Albanian as they began the unloading process, their voices confident. They identified the specific pallet numbers they were interested in and moved them to a mezzanine level, ready for extraction. Bruno Cucci and Gheorghe Dico were inside, preparing to receive the shipment. They were in no hurry. This was the culmination of months of planning, and they proceeded with the same meticulous care that had defined the operation. The first box was opened, then another. They were checking the goods, ensuring everything was intact. Then, a member of the team sliced open one of the specific boxes containing the dummy blocks and the hidden sensor. In the OCP command center, the signal flashed. The trap was sprung. The response was instantaneous and overwhelming. A team of armed NCA and Metropolitan Police officers who had been lying in wait nearby stormed the industrial estate. The quiet hum of the area was shattered by the high-pitched scream of a circular saw as officers sliced through the metal security door of the warehouse. In a matter of seconds, they were inside. Flashbangs detonated, filling the space with disorienting light and sound. Shouted commands of "Armed police, get on the floor!" echoed off the concrete walls. For the criminals, it was a moment of pure, unadulterated shock. 1 second, they were masters of their universe, on the cusp of a historic payday. The next, they were blinded, deafened, and face down on the cold floor with automatic weapons trained on them. There was no resistance. There was no escape. The game was over. A search of the warehouse revealed the full scope of their ambitions. Police found the 9 empty, brand-new suitcases waiting to be filled. They found a loaded Zastava M57 pistol and spare ammunition hidden in a ceiling girder, a sign that while they prized discretion, they were prepared for violence. In a nearby flat linked to Eric Mucci and Gheorghe Dico, officers found a further 37 kilograms of cocaine and a machine for pressing it into blocks. Meanwhile, Olsi Ebeja was arrested in a hire van near the warehouse where he had been acting as a lookout. The dramatic raid was the result of months of painstaking, often tedious police work that had begun long before the ship left Colombia. The investigation didn't start with a bang, but with a whisper, the analysis of data. Intelligence analysts at the NCA had been scrutinizing shipping manifests and global trade routes, searching for anomalies. They flagged the newly incorporated Agro Food Ltd, noting its sudden activity on a high-risk route from South America. This initial suspicion was cross-referenced with intelligence from European partners, who had also noted the chatter of a major Albanian OCG preparing a massive shipment to the UK. The pieces began to connect. A covert surveillance operation was launched, targeting the key players. Officers tracked their movements, logged their meetings, and mapped their network. They observed Eric Mucci meeting with Petko Jutev, cementing their understanding of the hierarchy. The digital trail was just as crucial. The criminals used encrypted phones, believing their communications were secure. But even encrypted networks can be compromised, and every device leaves a footprint. The breakthrough image of Eric Mucci at a petrol station was not a lucky accident. It was the result of analysts cross-referencing ANPR data of vehicles seen near the warehouse with thousands of hours of local CCTV footage. When the grainy image of the ghost-like leader finally emerged, it was a turning point, giving a face to the conspiracy's architect. The financial investigation ran in parallel. Officers followed the money, tracing payments from Agro Food Ltd through a labyrinth of shell companies with no real assets, created for the sole purpose of laundering money. They uncovered fictitious invoices for non-existent goods, a classic technique to make dirty money appear clean. Every thread the police pulled revealed another part of the intricate web Eric Mucci and his crew had woven. By the time the lorries arrived at the warehouse, the authorities knew not only what was inside them, but exactly who was waiting. The trial at the Central Criminal Court, the Old Bailey, was a formality of justice. The weight of the evidence assembled by the organized crime partnership was crushing. The prosecution laid out the entire conspiracy for the jury, from the port in Turbo to the warehouse in Tottenham. They played the crystal-clear audio from the bugs planted in the pallets, allowing the court to hear the defendants' own words as they prepared to handle the drugs. They showed the surveillance footage of the key players meeting, planning, and preparing. Faced with this mountain of proof, the defendants' facades crumbled. Bruno Cucci and Gheorghe Dico, the logistics and transport managers, pleaded guilty. Olsi Ebija, the lookout, was convicted by the jury. Petko Zhutev, the director, initially maintained his innocence, claiming he was just a legitimate fruit importer who had been duped. But as the trial progressed and the evidence against him became undeniable, he changed his plea to guilty mid-retrial. Only the mastermind, Eric Mucci, maintained his innocence to the end, but he, too, was found guilty by the jury. In his sentencing remarks, the judge described the plot as being on an industrial scale, driven by colossal greed. He spoke of the immense misery the drugs would have inflicted on countless lives had they reached the streets. The sentences he handed down were a reflection of the crime's magnitude. Eric Mucci, the architect of the entire operation, was sentenced to 33 years in prison. Petko Zhutev, the man who provided the crucial cover, received 27 years. Bruno Cucci, the hands-on warehouse manager, was given 21 years. Gheorghe Dico, the distributor, was sentenced to 18 years. Olsi Ebija, the lookout, received a 17-year sentence, a total of 116 years in prison for a network that once ran with the silent efficiency of a multinational corporation. Justice had not just knocked on their door, it had kicked it off its hinges. The successful dismantling of the Agro Food Ltd operation was a landmark victory in the war on drugs. It prevented a catastrophic amount of cocaine from flooding the UK, denied criminals hundreds of millions in profits, and demonstrated the power of international cooperation and sophisticated policing. NCA Head of Specialist Operations, John Coles, stated that the operation denied organized criminals hundreds of millions in profits, which would have been reinvested and fueled further violence and exploitation. Yet, the silence that has fallen over Unit 4 of the Crispin Industrial Estate is a deceptive one. For every criminal network that is exposed, another is learning from its mistakes, adapting its methods, and finding new cracks in the system to exploit. The demand that fuels this illicit trade has not vanished. The ghosts of the global drug trade have not been vanquished. They have merely retreated into the shadows, ready to re-emerge with a new name, a new commodity, and a new plan. The case of the cocaine bananas is a chilling testament to the fact that sometimes the greatest dangers are hidden in the most ordinary of things, waiting silently on a pallet in a warehouse down the road.